Today we're doing a Spongebob pasta, something I haven't done in a very long time, and this one's really interesting, and I wanted to get this out specifically this week. I was hoping to get it done earlier. This is Spongebob Wormy Predecessor. With this story, it's kind of similar to Squidward Suicide. It's people who sit down to watch the episode, there are a few weird glitches here and there, and then the ending kind of shows why they had to retool it to air on TV. And it's funny because in this case, it was the actual episode, but somehow the ending got messed up. It's never explained. I really enjoyed the story overall, but there are a lot of flaws, like where did this ending come from? Why did this happen? Why is there blood and gore? Naturally as a whole, why is there just all these issues going on in general? There's like 3 or 5 minutes where Sandy's just staying there, then the other townspeople come out, and then they attack her, and they killed the butterfly who they thought was a monster, which seems logical knowing how the episode went. But then they somehow throw it's like confetti? I'm not even kidding, they actually do that. This whole pasta idea essentially came from a few frames near the end of the episode that air on TV, where Patrick's face just suddenly disappears and it's just left as blank. And that's actually more of an interesting idea to make a whole story around that. And I guess this whole video was supposed to be about death, and thankfully we didn't get like some kind of religion kind of thing, like saying this is the end, everyone's gonna die in a week, that kind of thing. I really do enjoy the story as a whole. There definitely are a lot of scare factors near the end, a lot of imagery you can imagine and stuff, even though some of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I really do enjoy it, but maybe that's just me. It's kind of like liking that Aqua Teen Hunger Force Lost Episode pasta. I mean, a lot of people seem to dislike it, but I mean, I really do like it myself, so I guess it's all based on opinion. If you watch a lot of SpongeBob, you may have come across an episode titled Wormy. This episode may be ridiculous and goofy like all the other ones, but it has a gruesome secret. When the final version was first aired on the 17th of February in 2001, you would first see the title card, followed by the credits. The episode begins with SpongeBob and Patrick inside the tree dome, seeing Sandy the squirrel out the door. They start to play around with one of her pets, which was a common worm. After a few scenes of this, they decide that it's time to leave for the day. SpongeBob and friends sadly walk to their homes and retire for the night. The next morning, they return to find that Wormy had undergone metamorphosis, and being gullible as they are, believed his butterfly form to have eaten Wormy. They manage to trap into a bubble, but it escapes outside the tree dome. They follow it to the Krusty Krab, where Mr. Krabs is posing for a shot. Afraid that it would eat Mr. Krabs and Squidward, SpongeBob and Patrick tackle both of them, and they all topple into the cash register's boat. After explaining about the monster, they peek over the rim of the boat. Squidward criticizes them, and then grabs the bubble containing Wormy. He and Mr. Krabs look closer, only to see an up-close shot of what appears to be a fly's head. They scream in fright at the sight of the many eyes, and dash out of the building. SpongeBob, previously cowering in the boat, sees that they left their underwear and assumes that Wormy ate them. They decide to warn the town about Wormy and put up posters depicting a giant butterfly. Soon the town is in chaos, and the background is blood red. Buildings have chunks torn out of them, and some are completely destroyed. Much later, Sandy returns from a trip. She discovers the town in ruins, and assumes that a tornado came through. Wormy, still in the bubble, flies up to her and lands in her hand. She greets her pet, and proceeds to trap it in a jar. As if she defeated a terrible monster, the citizens of Bikini Bottom pop out and cheer for her, with SpongeBob saying, "Sandy caught the monster!" The show ends with Sandy being carried away by a cheering crowd. This is where the real story begins. If you look closely at Patrick in that last shot, you can see that his face is poorly drawn at first and a little distorted and stretched. Then it disappears altogether. Sure, it's just a slip-up by the artist. No big deal, you may say. Nothing could be further from the truth. Before the final release of the episode, they reviewed it as they would every other. Everything was normal from the beginning to where SpongeBob visits the Krusty Krab. At one point, his arm becomes deformed and bent backwards on itself. After a few seconds, The screen twitched, and was back to normal. A few minutes afterwards, when he thought Mr. Krabs and Squidward had been eaten, the blue in his eyes vanished, replaced by a black tar-like color. His mouth moved as if it were continuing the frightened dialogue about Wormy, except there was no sound. Upon observing his lip movements, you may notice that he appeared to say, "I'll kill you." Nothing else happened until Sandy arrived in a bus. The same scenario plays, where she traps Wormy in a jar. Nothing happens for about 3 minutes after that, and Sandy just stands still, like a statue. The sky is still blood red. Then slowly, heads belonging to the citizens emerge from behind the buildings. Instead of being delighted to capture Wormy, the faces reveal no emotion whatsoever. They stare blankly at Sandy before stepping slowly towards her. They pause about 5 feet from her and form a circle. SpongeBob's eyes are black again. Suddenly, one fish starts to scream, the rest follow, and soon all you hear is screeching, much like razors on a chalkboard. They grab the jar containing Wormy and smash it on the crater-ridden road. They proceed to stomp on him, and an unnatural amount of blood spurts out. A lone figure appears on the horizon and begins to advance towards the mob. As it approaches, it is found to be a patchwork with no face. He picks Sandy up and shakes her above his head. He then throws her down, cracking her helmet. Water pours in, and she begins to suffocate. The rest of the mob follows Patrick, who carries her away. Her innards are being thrown like confetti as she disappears over the horizon. The intersection now looks like a war zone. Smoldering craters, fires destroying buildings, and that blood-red sky. Nothing is left in the smoking road, except a very distorted SpongeBob. The episode ends with him staring directly at the camera and speaking in a raspy voice. "This is your end." The screen cuts to static and goes black. The team that watched this was horrified, and they did a half-baked job of fixing it before its release. They took the shot of SpongeBob saying "I'll kill you," and instead left it as a painting of the underwear on the Krusty Krab's floor. They never showed SpongeBob at that moment, instead using a sound clip of him saying,
"It ate them, and there it goes!"
As for the horde finale, they changed the scene of Sandy being carried away and mauled and replaced the mob's face to be joyful. They didn't follow the mob out of the shot. They tied it up and quickly gave Patrick a face. However, being distressed, they left a few frames of him without it. If you don't believe me, just watch the video.